Excellent. Now the lucky one having the mic. So I'm going to start. My name is Manuel, and I want to build, I guess, on your point, Sherwin, in terms of instead of looking at philanthropy activities in between business and NGOs, trying to find ways in which both the different sectors, also the political sector, I would say, can leverage their strength in terms of what they're really best at. And I was listening to Kofi Annan at some point during the last year where he said that everywhere in the world where I've been, even at places where the UN hadn't managed to supply food, I've always been to drink the Coke. And I think utilizing the distribution channels of, for instance, Coke or any others are good examples for how that can sort of happen. I think historically as well, we seem to be connecting around either disasters or opportunities. And it seems like there is both a disaster coming up, looking at what we're discussing at this conference, but also with that, the huge opportunity. My question to you then, I would say, is which are the forums in which this dialogue is happening, and how do you, or who do you see has the mandate and the role to drive the dialogue so these connections starts to take shape? Was that a clear question?
Yeah, I hope I kind of understand the point. So what's the forum where basically these two worlds, the corporate world and the NGO world, can meet and
even the political world.
And political world. I think on the most global level, I think the Global Compact is doing some good work. They have what they call a leadership summit. And what they're doing, I think, is a great idea that even though most of the member are companies, they extended very recently their membership and promoted it towards NGOs and business associations. And also at their conferences, they focus very much on inviting these different stakeholder groups and creating a forum for them to engage and to network with each other. And I think those are kind of very important activities that need to take place. Next step for the Global Compact is to start doing this type of work with national chapters. And we actually have been asked by the Compact to go into the different countries and create workshops that would invite NGOs and companies and tell them about opportunities between each other. And I think other mandates is the EBBF, I think, has a very important mandate. And I think what we need to do is we need to shoot a little bit out of our own mental framework that, change comes through looking at companies alone. I think change comes by looking at an interaction between companies and other very, very powerful stakeholder groups. And I think we are at an age where the power of change is beyond the power of sovereign nation states. And we have to realize that the great shifters of power today are not only companies, but also governments, but also NGOs, and also supranational agencies. And I think that the idea is, like, how do we create a cake out of these ingredients that can get us to the next leap forward? And I think that needs a little bit of time. I think, all these forums are great opportunities for that thinking to change.
Two more questions. One question.
My comment question is very much related to that, because I noticed in this survey the criteria on which the partnership was valued was very much from the perspective of the company and the UN agency, adaptability, accountability. It was very much looking, it wasn't a partnership. A better study would have been looking at it kind of from both angles. There's nothing here, the value of that partnership to the NGO. And in my experience, I find that that's a lot where the action is and where the sustainability of many of our development projects that we work with. To carry it on, once the money of the donor has exhausted, we go to NGOs, and they're usually the ones that help integrate it over a period of time into the community, so they're vital. But I think their efforts are often being not only not appreciated, but they're being diminished, because now a lot of NGOs have to kind of adapt to the priorities and where the money is, rather than to their expertise or to their promoting an ideal cause. They're usually made up of especially local NGOs, are made up of very idealistic people who believe in something good for the community, and we're not taking advantage of that by the way we are operating these partnerships. Anyway, thank you.
And I think the short answer is you're absolutely right. You need to get the other perspective. And it's not that we haven't thought about it. The idea was as follows. We knew we had to start somewhere. And the point was, should we have another rating where NGOs rate companies? And you have credit ratings from companies, you have, CSR ratings, you have ethics ratings, and so again, companies. So we're like, no, let's get the NGOs in. Like, who the heck is doing that? And especially the smaller ones and the not so known ones. But in an ideal world, and that's kind of the idea going forward for us, is to set up some type of system which is very similar to what you know from, let's get an example of eBay, where you rate buyers and sellers. So where actually companies are rating NGOs, as we did, but also NGOs are rating companies.
Good.
And so this is really kind of a very infant stage, what you saw. It's kind of breaking new ground, but there's a huge potential still. But the focus was getting the limelight on the NGOs and the smaller regional ones. And going forward, you're absolutely right. The two sides need to be there.
Thank you.
Yes, and you had also mentioned the importance or lack of being able for NGOs to present accountability and transparency to potential partnerships within companies. Based on that research, can you talk a little about what types of presentations and strategies these small NGOs and in the starter stages can present through different communication channels to become more vital and integrated partners with these outside business affiliates?
Interesting enough, probably the priorities that are set by donors or corporate partners are a little bit different for smaller and larger NGOs. For larger NGOs, a huge amount of money is involved. So you want to know, like, where the heck does the money go? Who on the board is independent? Like, Conservation International had a huge problem, a governance issue. At the end, they suggested to subject themselves to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which is actually not obligatory for NGOs. Nonetheless, they did it. So there you look more at the independence of individuals, on solicitation of independent auditors. Do they have an audit committee that's independent? Do they have a nomination committee that's independent, that selects the board member based on their competence? Do they have a remuneration committee that's independent? And transparency is key. Transparency is absolute key. You do something wrong, talk about it. It's okay, but say it. Say, I pay our CEO $600,000, At least give the donors a chance to say, look, man, that's not right. For smaller NGOs, it's a little bit different. I think for smaller NGOs, what's absolute key is to have the right competence of a team in-house. So the people who are driving the project, it's like an incubator. When you're going into an investment firm and you want to be funded, 60% of the idea is in the team. 40% of the whole project is in the idea. If you don't have the right team, forget the idea. It will never materialize. So to know that you got the right people in there, the right responsibilities, they have had achievements and credibility that people can trust, and you talk about it, you make it transparent, you talk about your achievements. NGOs, smaller ones, are not as good about talking about their achievements. Promote it. Communication, PR, is not something that's very close to them. So these are the things that need to happen. So I would say their governance needs are slightly, different.
Well, on that note, I'd like to thank our three panelists for their fantastic presentation, and it was